So that would be amazing. I think that's like kind of what people get at when they say like if you do what you love, you never work a day in your life. I'm like,
right.
Fuck you. You fucking work. You
There's like 5 people that have that opportunity.
Yeah, that's just such BS. I hate that saying because it's like, no, you just get paid for doing something that you love.
Yes.
You probably learn to hate it over time.
Right, if you're not careful, especially. Yes.
Yeah.
Definitely.
I think that's a
possibility.
slope. Hey everybody, welcome to Pursuing Pixels. This is episode number 62, and my name's Kevin Portelli, and I'm here tonight with Randall Nolery.
Hey everybody.
And John's not with us again this week. You're stuck with just the two of us once again this week, and you're actually going to be stuck listening to Randall talk about a little more Animal Crossing for a minute here. Although just a quick correction, I think, from last week. John was riding us in our Discord server.
Rightfully so.
When he listened to the last week's episode.
Rightfully so, because I was wrong. I was talking out my ass about Animal Crossing when I shouldn't have.
I put you on the spot.
You do that often, Kevin. And
I do it. You know, you're always like on top of the research, and I make assumptions. I apologize.
Yeah, no, for whatever reason, New Leaf was not an Animal Crossing that I put as much time into as the other entries. I think I mentioned even that, like, I was way bigger in the original GameCube, well, at least original to the US GameCube release, and specifically now this Switch game, New Horizons, are where I've put most of my Animal Crossing time into. So I didn't play New Leaf on 3DS, and I should have, because I said that swimming was, I thought, a new feature for New Horizons, and that is not true. You could swim in New Leaf, so I apologize, listeners.
Yeah, for all of you that were screaming into your podcast devices.
It's like, but
that's kind of interesting, actually. I mean, that's kind of weird that they would have a feature that was in a previous game. I mean, it's cool that it's in the game now, but that sort of strikes me as odd that it wouldn't be in the game from the get-go.
I know, and I guess that's kind of where my head was too, and then it seemed like a lot of folks were making a big deal out of it, and I was excited about it too. It's like, wow, they're adding this like huge gameplay changing feature to Animal Crossing, and one that I wasn't familiar with because, like I said, I mostly played the GameCube one before, which obviously didn't have any of that stuff. So I was super excited about the swimming. But yeah, definitely a thing that happened in New Leaf on 3DS. So they were... But yes, you would wonder why they wouldn't have added that just straight from the start and in New Horizons, as if they're iterating on this gameplay concept game by game. But yeah, we have it now, I suppose.
Yeah, but what about the character, though? That new character is new to this game? I'm putting you on the spot again, I guess.
Don't ask me about that, Kevin, because I don't know.
We'll wait for John. We'll wait for John to find out if this otter has been in the game before. It is an otter, correct?
It is an otter. The otter is very cute. The otter loves
It is
scallops,
very cute.
But I don't know if that's a new character or not, and I refuse to commit.
We will find out from the source. The source as soon as he's back with us.
Yes, absolutely.
But I guess we could just get into the meat of the episode here this week. We got a handful of games to talk about.
Yeah.
And a couple of games that I kind of dipped into again since I've been just poking around on itch.io. Just poking around. It's been really fun to just see all these tiny little indie developers and kind of seeing some games. There's a few game jams going on at the moment.
Nice.
The Game Maker's Toolkit game jam in particular, which is one of the bigger ones.
Yeah.
So just been seeing a ton of cool stuff from that, and then that's been leading me to different developers here and there. And I don't know exactly how I stumbled across this developer, but there were two games that caught my eye. I think one game in particular that actually caught my eye to where I checked out their page, and it's called SCANLINE. And this is a like run and gun platformer. It's kind of got a similar mechanic to, I talked about, ironically enough, a game called Atomic Run Gun Jump Gun a little bit on the podcast. And it's not an auto runner like that, but it has a mechanic where so you're basically, the reason it's called SCANLINE is it's like, it has a really great color palette. It's just like a black background with like this really like sky blue and like a pastel pink and like a white characters. It's just like, it's really eye-catching, at least to me. It's just really striking and really unique, like fluid in motion. And like, so the game starts in like immediate, and this is a procedurally generated platformer. And it's just like the game starts and there's a scan line. So it's not an auto runner, but there is this scan line that's constantly chasing you that you have to keep outrunning on the level. It's just constantly moving and you have to keep, like, it's just like kind of this pink dashed line that like is, if it catches up to you, you're dead. But also if you take like, I think if you just take one enemy hit, if I'm not mistaken, maybe two, but no, I'm pretty sure it's just one hit and you're dead.
Yeah.
There's water pits to avoid. Just all kinds of obstacles and enemies, but you can shoot, same deal. You can shoot up, down, or ahead of you, I guess left or right. But for the most part, you're always running forward because you're trying to avoid that scan line.
Right.
And then there's just like little like pots that you can break, kind of Zelda style, that have gems in them. And I think you're just going for a high score. I mean, maybe there's something to the end of this game where you can beat it, but there's just like every level will be probably less than 20, 30 seconds long, and you just kind of rip through it and on to the next level.
That always feels good.
It's so satisfying. And like the thing that's the reason I mentioned atomic run gun, jump gun is because you have to sometimes use like you're shooting downwards to like propel you almost like a double jump.
Yeah.
And then also you do, I didn't mention this, I kind of forgot for a second, but on the bottom right, you actually have an energy meter for your ammo that's constantly recharging. But like if you're just spamming it, you'll be out of ammo. So you won't be able to do that double jump. So you're kind of just the balance of the gameplay and that energy meter.
That's smart.
And everything about it. And I think this was made for a game jam, if I'm not mistaken. I don't know exactly which one, but for something that was just whipped together in a short amount of time, I couldn't put this game down. I made a video again.
Nice.
I think most of the games I'm talking about today, as probably going to be the case for a while coming, as part of that 15 minutes a game series.
Yes, sir.
Really got hooked on this game big time.
Yeah.
Again, the aesthetic helps a ton. And the music, like just everything about it. I really, really love this game.
You say you like the music? Music's good too?
Yeah. Really like it. Yeah. Just like a good, I think it's, somewhat repetitive, again, being something from a game jam.
Sure.
But it doesn't, because the gameplay is so engaging, it doesn't, and I never felt like, oh, here's that song again. I felt like I was just like getting pumped the whole time while I was playing.
So procedurally generated platformer. That like would be a little bit of a red flag for me as like a selling point potentially, but there's no like bullshit like super far jumps that like are easy to miss or anything like that, or it doesn't feel like, does it still feel organic in the way that like these levels are created essentially? It
does. And I guess when I say procedurally generated, like, it very well may be like a set of like a ton of different platforming challenges that are kind of strung together procedurally.
Sure.
It feels like there's a ton of games that kind of use that, and there were definitely certain kind of patterns I was seeing, like, oh, here's the part where you gotta. But it was kind of cool. Like some of the paths would be split where like I can kind of shoot through this barrier and take the low route, but I have to kind of risk and like take like and utilize that jumping feature with the like shooting downwards with the gun and kind of jump over this like little bit. Like I'd have to shoot down and hover over this water to get to this other platform where there would be a bunch of pots that I could break to get some extra points.
Nice.
Like really, like, again, that risk reward of like, if you're going for that high score, you can go this risky route. But if you're just trying to get to the next level, take the high road and, you just have to maybe kill a couple of enemies. But it gets hard fast. Like there were many, you get 3 lives and there were many single hit kill. And there were many times that I would just die on the very first obstacle on the first level. And then once you lose 1 life, you're just like, okay, I'm just going to jump in this water pit 2 more times in a row and just start this run over.
Oh, man.
But it's really, really fun, really addictive, really, really enjoyed it. And another game from RXI, to just go straight into another one, was a game called Shuriken that I also recorded a video of. And John actually mentioned he watched this one. But this was part of another game jam, and I don't remember the name of the jam exactly, but it was a Game Boy themed game jam.
Nice.
Where you, like, I think the restrictions, you just had to use like a 4 color palette, and
nice.
It had to be a 4, whatever the ratio, the pixel ratio or whatever of the aspect ratio of the Game Boy was.
Right.
But this game Shuriken is kind of like a little mini metroidvania.
Okay.
I played about a half hour or so on that video that I recorded, maybe a little bit more than that. And it has like tons of save points and everything, and everything's interconnected. And basically you're this platforming little ninja character, I presume. And you get 3 shurikens, and when you throw them, they either like you can kill enemies with them and whatever, but you have to recollect them, kind of like in like Towerfall or something like that, where you have to recollect your arrows after you shoot them.
Yep.
So like, and this is like full blown, like, even though it's like these like it's a Metroidvania in the sense that they're kind of these single screen challenges, like Game Boy style, like, you know, you're almost Zelda style, like you're like, here's a single screen. It's not top down, it's a platformer, but it's like, okay, here's the single screen, get to the door or the entrance to the next room. And, you know, and then the screen scrolls over. So the screen is never scrolling with you. Right. It's always a single screen scrolling as you enter a new room, either above you, below you, right or left or whatever.
Right.
But the shurikens will remain no matter where you leave them. Like, you can keep progressing through the game. Like, there's save points all through them. So, like, I think if you die, you respawn with all 3 of your shurikens again, so it's not like you have to, like, you're totally screwed or anything if you if you leave them behind.
Yeah.
But like it's kind of cool. You really have to think about that at all times. And I just like it towards the end of the video, I unlocked the double jump, which I think is going to give me obviously access to new areas.
Oh yeah.
But yeah, for like a little game jam game, and for, again, like we've talked about on the podcast before, and maybe one day we'll release our bonus episodes of like the very first initial episodes we recorded, but until then we'll keep it a secret of some of the Game Boy games we've been burned on in the past.
Right.
But these Game Boy themed, you know, Randall and I at least for sure are kind of suckers for that.
Oh yeah.
And yeah, we've picked up a few that have not been the greatest.
Yeah.
And this one, again, just being something that's so bite-sized, like you can probably rip through it in an hour or two.
Which is appealing. Definitely appealing.
Dude, for me, very appealing.
Yes.
Like, I just like these bite-sized, like, give me the idea of the game and don't overstay your welcome and let me move on to the next thing, because I almost never finish a game anyways. This gives me the opportunity to do so.
Absolutely.
But this one, just like, yeah, the platforming, the controls feel super tight. The music's great again.
Nice.
The way the shurikens, like, they stick into the ceiling, that you can throw them up, down, left, or right. So they'll stick into the ceiling, stick into the wall. They will eventually drop, but like the way you have to, like, if you get into like a little boss room that gets closed off and, hey, I got to clear out these enemies before I can progress, you know, you get into some tight spaces, and it's just a lot of fun. I really, really like the game. It's really charming.
Nice.
And definitely going to have RXI on my radar.
Nice.
And we'll have links, as always, in the video description for all that stuff. But I know that speaking of the Game Boy inspired stuff, Randall, I know you and I did dip into a game that was included in the Itch.io bundle for racial justice and equality.
Indeed.
And recently went on sale on the Switch.
Yes.
And I think we've both been playing some Dogurai lately.
Dogurai, yes. And I actually did buy it on Switch despite owning that bundle, just because, again, I just prefer playing everything on Switch. And now I have a litany
throw these developers a few bucks.
Oh, yeah. And that, you know, that's awesome too, right? And it's not like, I think it was on sale for $1. Like, it was $1. So, like, yeah,
and it's only $5 normally either way, but I feel the same way. Just like I'm definitely going to buy it next time I fire up my Switch.
Oh yeah. Yeah. Like, that's pretty good price for this. And like, I just have a litany of retro inspired controllers now available to me for my Switch. So that always helps like bring me to play these type of games on my Switch. And yeah, there's just like so many retro inspired games, countless at this point, available on the eShop anyway. But Dogurai is definitely very, very Game Boy inspired, down to like using shades of green as like a default color palette, like very Game Boy. The only thing that it really breaks from being completely Game Boy is that there's technically 3 action buttons as opposed to 2, because good point. It's not just jump and attack, it's jump, attack, which attacking, at least so far from what I've played, is slashing. But then there's also a 3rd button for a slide, and you know that slide definitely helps you. It's actually meaningful and useful to get through certain levels, especially some of the harder levels as you go through. And I will say on the front side, there's the challenge of this game is pretty immense on some of these later levels. I was kind of running up against a wall. You might have got further than me then, because I played like maybe 3 or 4 levels, and I felt a nice challenge for sure, but I didn't quite feel like I was getting handed it to me yet. Yeah. Or getting it handed to me. Yeah, I definitely was getting it handed to me. Maybe it was just the levels I selected. Like, I beat the first level. That didn't take a super long time to do, and I was into it. But then I played a couple, I think there's 8 total levels. I played a couple other levels, and in both of those levels, I would get a little bit over halfway through and just, man, over and over again, just lose. And thankfully, there is kind of a checkpoint, like an unofficial checkpoint that they give you halfway through a lot of these levels, I've noticed, which is thank goodness. Yeah. Another thing that if they were going to be like pure Game Boy, they would not do for you. You're like, no, you lost your life. Start from the beginning again, buddy. Thankfully, they're not that cruel because, like I said, it's challenging. And also, you do have a double jump, which definitely helps because at its core, we're talking about a side-scrolling ninja platformer, kind of like a Ninja Gaiden or a Shinobi type of thing. If you picture that, but on Game Boy, this is basically that.
Yeah, that's a good frame of reference for sure.
Yeah. And then, you kind of go through all your the different levels kind of have different themes. There's one that's kind of ice-based, one that's fire-based, Again, very, very common, especially for the 90s and late 80s when these Game Boy games would come out. So they did a very nice love letter to that style of game, but I'm just getting my ass kicked. How about you?
I'm not having that experience quite. And again, I haven't played a ton. Like, I definitely want to dip back in and kind of had the thought of, like, I played a few on from the Itch.io bundle, and then I kind of had the feeling of like, well, I'm probably going to pick this up on my Switch, so maybe I'll wait till I actually try to like beat it till I pick it up on there. But I'm not having quite the brutal experience, but really enjoying, like, one of the things that I noticed with like this and Shuriken as well. But with like the Game Boy games that I feel like I've been burned on, one of the key things with these like kind of nostalgia fueled retro inspired games is like, like Shovel Knight, like they capture that retro feeling, but they're not actually 100%. This isn't a game that could be played on the NES. Like they're overstepping a tiny bit, and like that they're capturing what you remember those games being like, which is exactly. I'm not, again, we're not the first people to say that or anything like that,
but it's true.
But yeah, and a lot of old Game Boy games and the ones that they've inspired, unfortunately, have like these really stiff controls. Like, I don't know how else to put it, but they're just like really like rigid, stiff controls.
Yep.
And Dogurai is very far from that. Like, it's very fluid. Like, again, like you mentioned, the double jump.
Yep.
And just like your sense of movement is really fluid. Like, even far more so than like Ninja Gaiden.
Yeah, it feels
in
good.
my opinion. Like, you just have like a really good sense of movement and a really good. I'm just enjoying like the level variety. Like, I had one level where I was like kind of doing like an auto run, like motorcycle chunk where you're like kind of like dodging paths, like making certain jumps, and there were again a few different paths you could take.
Yep.
But just really found this game to be, again, after having been burned by a few. I actually played this one before I played Shuriken, which is probably what led me to check that one out, and maybe even was one of the suggested games on the Itch.io page.
Yeah.
But yeah, that was I was just like, oh, okay, so these Game Boy inspired games can actually be pretty fun. that was kind of the feeling I had, because I was really enjoying it, and I was really enjoying because at least on the way I was playing was like the dynamic palette changing, so every level kind of had its own palette.
Yep.
And really, like, particularly one of the levels, it was kind of like a fire themed level.
Yeah,
and
that's the one I've been stuck on.
Yeah, that one I did not beat. I will say that for sure. Or I shouldn't say for sure. I don't remember 100%, but I'm pretty sure that was the last one I played, and I don't remember beating it.
Yeah.
But I really liked that color palette a lot.
Me too.
And I really, one thing we didn't mention is, like, for the most part, you are playing hack and slash combat. But it does have these like little quick time events against certain enemies that are really cool. Like, at least for me, like, you kind of works almost like an extended version of the way like Mark of the Ninjas combat works, where you'll get up to this big enemy and you'll attack them, and then you'll essentially, like, at least in a lot of cases, kind of like knock them up in the air, and it goes into almost like a slow-mo sort of thing, and you have to do like a sequence of D-pad inputs of like up, down, left, right.
Yep.
That are. It doesn't seem to be the same anytime. Like,
no.
It's not like, oh, this enemy always has this pattern. It's always different and just random. But I don't know what the punishment is for failing that. But,
I don't think I've ever messed one up, but like, they're not so hard that, it's that easy to mess up. But I've never had a problem with quick time events like that in games. I know some folks will complain about the quick time event inputs in other games, like historically, like Shenmue and other games like that. But that stuff's never really bothered me in any game, and it doesn't here either. So
same here, yeah. It's even a little bit of I don't know, it just breaks up the flow of the gameplay a little bit. I was going to say it's even a little bit appealing, in some like there was what was that game, like Akura's or Asura's Wrath or something from Capcom that was like all quick time events. Like that game looked cool to me. I don't know. I never played it, but
games don't all have to play the same. Like different concepts are fun.
Yeah. Well, that's pretty much all I had to say about Dogurai, but I know you had something else you wanted to talk about this week. And
from one dog experience to another, I'm playing still some more Last of Us, and I guess I shouldn't necessarily use that as a transition, because that could be considered a spoiler for some folks playing The Last of Us 2. But there are dogs in The Last of Us 2.
Spoiler alert! There are dogs.
And these dogs are a gameplay mechanic, and they're sons of bitches, because they can smell you. Like other creatures and humans, they can hear you. Some of them can see you, but dogs are the only ones that can smell you, and they will pick up on your scent trail. And you can use your kind of you have these, like, I forgot exactly what it's called, but there's like this intuition power that you have where you can kind of hunch down and then listen, and you can kind of see almost like an echolocation thing where creatures, living things are that are threats to you.
Yeah, I think it's called Spidey sense.
Sure. Basically, yes.
But it's just dogging on Last of Us. I'm sorry.
It's the same thing here, but now you can also see your trail, your scent trail that you're leaving. Ooh. That dogs are picking up on. And as you go into that Spidey sense, you can see the dog following your trail and going through the door you went through, and they're about to come across,
oh man,
turn the corner, like, son of a... Like, I was just sitting here and like I like to do in these type of games, and set my little traps and like slowly walk up behind people. And now I can't do that because this dog is hot on my trail, and I've got to figure out how I'm going to either take care of that dog, as in kill it, or run out of this building entirely and like avoid that conflict, and maybe miss out on collectibles. And I'm not going to miss out on collectibles. So yeah, I've been killing some dogs.
That I was just going to say, apart from the dog murder, that actually sounds like a really cool mechanic.
Yeah.
Picturing like that. Yeah, even just picturing like the scent trail sounds cool, but then picturing like the tense like situation where, like, if you do, I'm assuming there's not just dogs in these situations, right? There's dogs and potentially humans or the clickers. I don't know.
And I'm sure as time goes on, it'll probably be a combination of all of them. I'm sure of it.
Yeah,
and that'll be nuts.
And then so juggling of like, do I risk making the noise, or do I risk running? Like you said, like what route do I take? That sounds like really cool gameplay out of you. I was actually getting pretty excited when you were talking about that.
It is cool too, because I tend to want to sneak up and do melee attacks behind these, Metal Gear Solid style on these humans or clickers or creatures. I can't do that the same way with the dogs. It's just not going to work that way. So you can craft silencers for your pistols, but if the humans are in range, they could still hear that and be like, what's that? What was that? And then they'll start looking, and they'll find the dog that died, and then that becomes a whole thing.
Right.
But yeah, like I said, I've had no problem dispatching the dogs. They're evil dogs. They've aligned themselves with the bad humans. They have to know that comes with the job, right? So
that's fair.
But it's like, ooh, this is kind of like, up until that point in The Last of Us 2, they had kind of, iterated on all the other crafting and sneaking and, all the other shooting mechanics, but it was more or less kind of what The Last of Us was doing. And the dogs, besides a different kind of mutant creature, the dog was kind of the first time I was like, oh, this is different. This is a new spin compared to the first game that like really changes the way that I play this game.
Yeah.
So, Yeah, I appreciated that. And similarly, they, right before that point, a couple of scenes earlier, they had introduced a new type of mutant creature. I keep using that terminology, but there's definitely a name for them that I just, for some reason, can't remember. But basically, this version of said mutant creature, you can't just run up and melee attack because they've got this built-in armor. So you have to approach them differently too. So the game is basically shaking me and probably most other people out of their usual patterns with this game. And I appreciate that, you know.
Yeah, definitely. Especially for a game that, like, it seems to be like the main discourse, at least online, is about the story and whatnot.
Yeah.
It is really cool that, like, I even forget, you know, that this game is very gameplay heavy as well.
Yes.
So
definitely gameplay heavy. And yeah, kind of like I was talking about last week, I've more or less kind of brushed the story off to the side. It kind of lives in a corner of the room to me when I play this game. You know, I'm just not coming to it for that. So yeah. I'm good.
Which is a little bit unfortunate, though.
It is.
Being that that's like something that Naughty Dog.
Yeah.
Like, we were just talking about Uncharted a little bit before the podcast, and like, man, I was so hooked into those games through the third in the series pretty much. And yeah, by the time the fourth one came around, it was just like, I don't know if it was just too much of the same or what the deal was, or if they were trying too hard, or you know, the loss of one of the writers. I don't know what the deal is, but
feels all of the above, like Death from a Thousand Cuts with Uncharted 4. And yeah, I just couldn't. I tried to will myself to complete that game because I made it halfway through because I loved the first three so much.
I love them. I freaking love like some of my favorite video game. Like,
I know you got me to play those.
Like,
I was like, you were like, you got to play these Uncharted.
I was
games.
going nuts, and like, and again, I'm not a big shooter guy, so like for me to, not that this is like a traditional like first person shooter or anything, but for me to be hyping up a third person action game is if you've listened to our podcast at all, I've hardly ever talk about that stuff. So
and an action game where you're building up a pretty dang high body count by the end of these Uncharted games.
It is kind of nuts. You're just slaying human after human, and they are, you know, they're not zombies in this game. In Uncharted, they are fucking human beings.
Yeah, they're dudes just trying to collect a paycheck. They don't know that this guy's like an evil henchman, man. They just gotta feed their family.
Hey, just like those dogs, they knew what they signed up for.
I guess that's fair. If I'm not going to give the dogs a break,
it does feel a little brutal.
Like
again, I'm not always the craziest about blowing away a bunch of people in a video game, but it's inevitable.
It is.
And I guess, you know, I say that, and, you know, I'm talking about SCANLINE where I'm just blowing away bats and frogs and turtles and whatever the hell. And I mean, they're pixelated, so it's a little less real to me, but I'm still blowing stuff away. So
they're pixelated though, so that helps quite a bit, I do think, for whatever reason.
I was gonna say it's weird that it helps because they're cuter, and like they're more cute, and I'm blowing them away. So but it does help.
Childhood conditioning to some degree, maybe. I don't know.
Yeah. But anything more on The Last of Us? You're enjoying what you're playing, or?
Yeah, I am, because it is more challenging. It is pushing me out of my usual comfort zones and like just going through the motions that way. And it's still very pretty. Definitely a good showcase for the PlayStation 4 that way. So, and it, you know, it's in 4K, and I've got a 4K TV. So like there's not still that many games that take full advantage of that resolution, especially because, like I said, I play most of my stuff on Switch regardless. So it's been cool to kind of play that and have that full big budget experience that way. And that's probably it for this week, but yeah, definitely going to keep playing it. It's always going to kind of be on the burner until I complete it.
Yeah, it's really exciting to me to hear that it's not like a stale experience or like a rehash of the first game. Totally, you know, that is exciting to me.
Yeah. And like I said, I love the first game anyway, so that's maybe I'm a little bit biased that way.
Yeah. Well, I got another little 2-pack here that I wanted to talk about before we wrap things up today. And there's one game that I know you played a while ago, and these are both from DYA Games, and I think they're a couple of brothers. I'm not 100% sure, but I was looking up their page earlier, and that was the gist I got. But one of the games that I wanted to talk about was Super Star Path, and again, I made videos for both of these games. But this is like another, we talk about a bunch of like bullet hell shooters and just shmups in general on the podcast all the time. And we talk about a bunch of match 3 puzzlers on the podcast all the time, particularly Randall and I. I guess John's a big puzzle guy too.
Oh yeah.
But we talk about puzzlers all the time on the podcast, and this is kind of blending the best of both worlds, or at least both worlds. I guess I shouldn't say the best, because this isn't like the most immaculate game ever. But it's good. I'm having a lot of fun with it. Yeah. I don't want to sell it short by any means either. Again, I think it's like a $5 game on the Switch.
Totally.
That's what I picked it up for. Not on sale, just full price. And the match 3 puzzling, it actually gets kind of tough. Like you have to, there's all these aliens scattered, and it's kind of like a pretty slow moving level. Yeah. And as you progress, there's maybe like 5 or 6 different planets or levels. And each one will have like a different obstacle or two that an enemy that you have to avoid throughout. The aliens don't do damage to you. They're just like different colors and stuff.
Yeah.
And you shoot them. But the thing is, so this is kind of hard to describe, but so like the enemy that you shoot will chain into any adjacent enemies that are touching of the same color.
Right.
But then when that chain ends, any enemy or any alien that's like adjacent to that ending chain enemy will turn into a crystallized alien, or like kind of like an ice block almost is what it looks like to me.
Yeah.
And then you can't shoot those. You can't do anything to them. They're just like a block that you can't get past. So there's a lot of scenarios where if you're just like shooting willy-nilly and just going nuts and just spamming the shoot button, you're probably going to block yourself off and not be able to progress. Like you actually will get closed off and sandwiched, and you usually get 3 lives.
You can't treat this like a traditional shmup that way. It's not going to fly.
Not at all. And one thing that I noticed that I didn't realize initially, which I really liked, is like, so when you're playing the puzzle section of the level, you do have to push the shoot button individually each time to fire. Like you can't hold it down.
Right.
But then at the end, if you are able to clear, like, get through the match 3 section and clear all the obstacles, when you get to the end of the boss battle, which is more of like a traditional bullet hell shmup situation. Like it's not the craziest bullet patterns or anything, but it gets pretty hectic.
Yeah.
And you are able to hold down the fire button and just like kind of like spam that and just focus on dodging, which is really nice.
Yes.
But yeah, I played this game the other day to make a video for it real quick, because I remember enjoying it quite a bit, and I enjoyed it, honestly, even more than I thought I did.
Nice.
The only thing that I would say that's like a small gripe is like it has this system where like you have to unlock different ships. Like each run, you kind of collect points and gems from destroying aliens, and you use that to kind of spend almost like roguelike style. But there doesn't seem to be like a real system to it. Like it almost feels like just kind of like earn gems and buy the next one, earn gems, buy the next one. And then you even can, like, on each level, there'll be like 3 black aliens that you can shoot that will have like a hidden emerald in them.
Okay.
That you can like kind of clear out. And there'll be a few different I think they're random colors, but they actually give you different power-ups where you can spend them to like buff up your ship's defense or their attack power or their speed, I think.
Okay.
There's 3 different attributes, and you can spend those points, but there's like a limited number in the game. But like it gets to the point where like certain ships, like I think you can max them out at like 5 tiers of speed, or 5 points of each thing: defense, power, and speed.
Yeah.
But like some ships are maxed out where like the first ship you have, I think, can only have like a maximum of 3 of everything. So it's like, why would I waste my points on this ship that clearly can't be upgraded beyond this?
Right. Has limitations.
So
hard caps on its ability.
Yeah, it just seems like the balance on that is a little kind of tacked on or slapped onto the game, kind of to make it feel more complete or something, where like, in my opinion, it would have been maybe better if they just leaned into the arcade experience a little bit more.
Yeah.
But at the end of the day, that really is what it is. This is like small nitpicking and griping about the way the unlock system works.
Right.
I guess there was just maybe a way where you could just have all the ships from the get-go and you just selected from them and they had different stats, and it wasn't, it just feels kind of forced, I guess. Mm-hmm. It doesn't feel like it needs to be there, because the mechanics are fun enough to me. Like I really do find myself like, let me play a run or two, and I play for much longer than I expect. Even the video I made was like more than a half hour, I think.
Oh, nice.
I was not planning on playing for that long, so
nice.
But what do you think about this game? I've been kind of rambling on for a minute.
Oh, no problem. Yeah,
I know it's been a while.
It's such a unique game, and like I know it's been a while since I've played it, because I think when we first were into this game was probably closer to a year ago. Like it was been like out
right when we started the podcast. I think so. And that's when I played it, and I remembered like I wanted to. The first thing I did is tried to play it like a shmup, and just got my ass handed to me. And yeah, like same here.
I think at that point too, we were trying to play like a gajillion games each week. So I don't think I gave this one as much time as I should have. And now you saying that you liked it even more playing it now than you did then, really, because I've got it on my Switch still, and it makes me very interested to go back and play it again and see what I remembered and see how I feel about it now a year later. Because I came away with a good impression, but yeah, I didn't get very far necessarily. So
yeah, well, I definitely want to hear what you think about that, because these guys do a really great job of like that 16-bit era pixel art. Like
that's what really drew me in.
Yeah, it's super authentic.
Yep.
Like I don't know how to explain it, but it's just this game and the one that I'm going to talk about in a second just have like such a great, like even the music, even though it's not like true to they're definitely using some like different instrumentation that you couldn't do on the Super Nintendo or whatever, but it just feels very appropriate, very arcadey. Even like the announcer that's like action or let's go or round one or whatever is like, the voice acting is a little cheesy for sure. They go all in on it,
of course,
but it feels like they know what they're doing.
Of
like
course,
they're leaning into like that 90s, like
mid 90s
ham, and like it even has that like echoey arcade sound to it.
Heck
even
yeah. Love that.
So yeah, the other game, Randall, that will hopefully this will encourage you to not only go back and check out Superstar Path, but this game is tailor made for you and I think. I checked out Bot Vice, and so one of the games that I've played from DYA with DJ is Strikey Sisters.
Yeah.
And I think we talked about that on the podcast.
We did.
We've all played that a little bit. But I played that particularly co-op with DJ, and this game's kind of similar to that, where you're like you control a character it's only one player though, which is a little bit unfortunate, but you control one character at the bottom of the screen, kind of like you do in Strikey Sisters, where it's like Strikey Sisters is more like breakout style.
Yeah.
And this is like your control. It's more Wild Gun style, where it's like an arena gallery shooter.
Yes, please.
But you control, and I recorded a video for this too, and I kind of this game is hard. Like it is hard. Like right after the tutorial, it's just like start getting in the groove. Like it just the way it even teases you with like get in the groove with the controls, and you'll start feeling, get in the zone or something.
Just
but it's
trust
just like
us. Take it easy at first. To be fair though, like I don't think any of these gallery shooters are easy. Like that subgenre is just difficult by default in my experience.
Very difficult.
But awesome.
So the mechanics here are essentially you control this character Aaron, which is actually one of the bosses that you have to fight in Strikey Sisters. DYA does like a really great job of tying games together.
I love that.
You actually, at the start of this game, you're playing as Aaron, and you actually just beat Superstar Path, like you're playing it on your TV, and then it like interrupts the message, and like some message cuts into the TV, and like, you're like, oh shit, I gotta go save the world. So they just do a really great job of tying their universe together. Yeah. But essentially, so you have this row of like a barrier essentially that you can hide behind, like almost like Gears of War style.
Yeah.
So you can move left or right, or you can press forward to press up against the barrier and like duck under the cover essentially.
Nice.
So even like enemies and projectiles that are flying like crazy, like you can lean up against that and duck behind it. But many of those barriers, like some of it is permanent, but some of it can be destroyed by the enemy fire.
Right.
And then same thing with the enemy arena. There's like forklifts, all kinds of crazy stuff going on in the levels that you can like blow that stuff up. Some of it you can clear. Some of it is like a permanent obstacle. And then you're running left to right. you can either fire ahead at, straight ahead, or you can hold down one of the triggers that will or you can custom map the controls any way you like, actually, which is amazing. I had to change it quite a bit to make it feel comfortable for me. But anyways, I got it to a point where it did feel comfortable, and you can lock onto enemies, so it'll lock onto the nearest enemy to you. So you can even when you're like running away from enemies, you're locked onto one, and you can keep kind of letting that go. And I find myself almost like feathering on that a little bit, where I'm like, let me shoot this enemy. Okay, let me let go. And then there's also these like yellow bots that'll come flying into the arena that you can shoot that'll drop different weapons. So like machine gun or spread shot.
Nice.
Or grenade launcher, flamethrower, and then sometimes drop health pickups too. And you have 4 hearts at least at the beginning. And it is just like, I think I played like 3 or 4 levels on the video, and I am just getting my ass whooped. And I'm playing on normal. There's easy, normal, and hard, but like normal is called warrior, and I think hard is like insane or something. And it is just brutal, but in the best way, like the boss battle. Oh, and you also have a saber that you can swing that will attack enemies. Like if they get right up to the barrier, you can attack them, and it's super powerful.
I'm a sucker for that.
It also clears enemy projectiles, so it's kind of like not a screen clear, but like right in front of your character.
Yes.
This game is so fucking addicting.
I'm down.
Oh man, it has that just really awesome 16-bit style.
Yeah,
goes all in on the hammy voice acting, like to the point where like the enemies are like, "Say hello to my little friend."
Yeah,
it's like it's really bad, but like but in the way that like it makes me laugh every time.
Yeah.
Like again, it's like bad, so bad that it's good.
It's only single player. This game.
It's only single player. It's because it screams. I was recording it, I was like, man, this just screams couch co-op,
right?
But I will say it's so intense and like fast paced.
Yeah,
I don't even know if you could follow what was going on if you're playing in couch co-op. But it's a little bit of a bummer, especially having played Strikey Sisters and having such a similar aesthetic.
Right.
Like I was just like, I just kind of almost assumed it was co-op. But one thing worth mentioning, I'm not sure about Super Star Path, but I know for a fact that Strikey Sisters and Bot Vice both have demos on the Switch.
That's awesome.
I'm pretty sure Super Star Path does too. It kind of seems odd that it wouldn't have one if the other two do.
Kudos to them for doing that. That's
it's
extra
big because
effort.
I will say Bot Vice, I checked out the demo, and Strikey Sisters, and those were both like put me over the edge, and they're both only I think like $8 or $10.
Yeah.
So they both put me over the edge of just like, like not only does it look cool, but it plays cool. Cause like we talked about before, there's been some Game Boy games that looked cool and they weren't super fun. So, this one I was able to just verify that looks cool. Oh, it is cool.
It is.
And it was nice to see. So yeah, I love that. There's a lot more demos than you would think on the Switch. Actually, it's worth
Especially
exploring
now.
what's available. Yeah. It's worth exploring what's available on there for sure. But Randall, you gotta play Bot Vice. I will let you know next time it goes on sale.
That sounds like me, the video game.
That's all I was thinking while I was playing it. I was like, this is like, and you have a dodge roll too. I didn't even mention that. So you have like just constant, and you are using these buttons. Like you have to find a button layout that you can memorize because like you are using all of these abilities, or at least if you want to succeed, you have to be juggling all of these abilities like very frequently, very quickly. It's awesome.
Awesome.
I really love, of the 3 I've played from DYA, I would say Bot Vice is my favorite.
Yeah.
I had a blast playing Strikey Sisters co-op. I love Super Star Path, but man, Bot Vice is a great game. Like if you like arcade action, you have to play this game.
They made a Wild Guns. Like there's not enough of those type of games, in my opinion.
Yeah.
So I'm so psyched that they made that, and I will play this. Definitely.
Heck yeah. Cool. Well, I'm excited to hear your thoughts on that.
Yes.
When you get around to it.
Yes.
But I think that's pretty much all we had to chat about this week. Yeah.
Yes, sir.
Nice. Well, as always, you can find us online more often than usual lately on YouTube, but everywhere else.
Those videos are awesome. 15 minutes of game. Check them out.
Thanks, man. Yeah, I think I'm up to video 62 at the time of recording this, and yeah, they're just like a bunch of indie game highlights. So if you're looking for something new to play, check that out.
It's another awesome resource just to see the games in action, and Kevin, who knows what he's doing with a lot of these games, just to like see how he handles them and see if it's something you'd like or not.
Yeah, watch me hack my way through some of these experiences. But yeah, we're on Twitter, Instagram, all that stuff, pursuingpixels.com. Check the episode description at the very bottom. Shoot us a line at pursuingpixels@gmail.com if you got a question or anything, or if there's a game you want us to check out.
Yes, sir.
And otherwise, we will catch you next week. Take care.
Bye-bye. I'm about to be fucking 36 in September. Holy shit.
Something about, I knew this wasn't true, but something about the tone of your voice, I thought you were going to say 40.
Oh,
I was just like, you're like, I'm about to be fucking 40. I was just like, what? I was
36
like,
is pretty close to 40.
It is. I remember my friend Jacqueline asked me, she was like, when I turned 30, she was like, oh, texted like, happy birthday, Kev. How's it feel to be 30 or whatever? I was like, I do grunt a lot more. Like when I reach for anything, like I'm reaching for the remote and just just like that's just my go-to. Everything I do is like grunt worthy now.
The bag of bones starts breaking down.
Seriously, man. I did call. We'll get into the episode in a second here. We should get started, but